Hello and welcome to another edition of the Rider Rumblings podcast. This is episode 186 with Taylor Shire and Darrell Davis. And for the first time ever, Darrell, the Rider Rumblings podcast is previewing a Grey Cup game between the Saskatchewan Roughriders and any opponent, but the Montreal Alouettes are their opponent this week. The Rider Rumblings podcast has not been around for a Grey Cup. It's been 2013 since we've seen this team in a Grey Cup.
Wow, we have a legacy now. Good for us. Congratulations to them, right? They played well, and what excitement. They're hoping it turns out better than the last two times the Roughriders met the Alouettes in the Grey Cup. Everybody will remember, and I'm sorry to bring this up, 2009 and 2010, and one of them had the first one had the 13th man debacle, so that ended up costing the Roughriders on the last play of the game. So I can't think you write another script like that, and I know the Rider fans are hoping that it doesn't. Interesting that it's going to be in Winnipeg. A lot of people will be making the trip there, including you, maybe. Hey, just a possibility. So
yeah,
if you do, good luck. I hope you're healthy.
Appreciate that. Yeah, hopefully. Well, let's just get through this podcast with my voice this morning, and hopefully it recovers in time. But obviously, we have to talk about the West Final and the Riders beating the BC Lions, and as you put it, overcoming maybe, but more like surviving an interesting coaching decision. Sure, we can talk about the last drive and the last touchdown by Trevor Harris, but we need to go back a little bit. A few minutes earlier, the Riders are pressing to tie the game, and then there's this decision to kick a field goal on the 5-yard line with 3 minutes left and not go for the tie at that point in the game.
Unbelievable. I couldn't fathom it. It made no sense to me what Corey Mace, the head coach, was doing. Overcome is the verb I used in the headline in the Leader-Post, and I thought they did overcome something that was almost unfathomable to do. Survive may have been the better choice of words, but you're right. What did you think? I was aghast at that decision. I know it worked out, but when you go, holy moly, what's he doing? Taking 3 points from the 5-yard line. The weird thing too, Taylor, they're first and goal on the 5-yard line, throw 2 incompletions, one of them into the end zone to Ken Schaefer-Baker that get they stop the clock, obviously, but why not run it? They've got AJ Ouellette, that whole new rebuilt offensive line, which was outstanding, didn't allow Trevor Harris to get sacked. Good push on the running plays. Why not just run it 3 times? You got Tommy Stevens back, the short yardage quarterback who they didn't really deploy. But, it just seemed to make sense to grind it in, throw 2 incompletions, and then he sends Brett Lothar in for a 12-yard field goal to cut the deficit to 4. As you said, they still need a touchdown after that. So it made no sense at all to me. What were you thinking at that moment?
Same thing. It was it was not like him, in my opinion. He's the type of guy to be like, all right, we're going to put our foot down. This is, we're going to live or die by how this, and yes, go back to the first down play, run the ball. You can get 5 yards on 3 plays.
Yep.
It was an interesting decision to pass twice. And then obviously to come in and kick the field goal. I thought it was not the right call in the moment, but then when I sort of reflected on it a little bit, they still needed more points to win the game. That would have tied the game had they made the touchdown and the convert. So then what? Then you put the ball into Nathan Rourke's hands, and obviously tons of time left, but you get a stop from your defense, and then you're still having to go down and score. And I was sort of thinking after, is that somehow this conspiracy theory of not wanting Brett Lothar to kick a field goal for the win, so you make him kick the easy one, and you put your trust in Trevor Harris to go down and have to score a touchdown.
Interesting. Okay.
So you give Brett the chip shot, and then you don't make him kick a 40-yard or a 30-yard or whatever it is moments later for the win.
That's a good one.
So I wonder, and I don't think that'll ever surface, right? Mace is never going to come out and say that. But I wonder if there was ever an ounce of doubt in the kicker to be like, hey, let's just get the field goal out of the way. We want to play for the win. Let's take our 3 points now and get our 7 later, as opposed to take our 7 now and get our 3 later.
Okay.
I don't know.
That makes a lot more sense. I had not thought about that. With the struggles that Brett Lothar's had this year, a 12-yard was automatic for everybody. But if they're making him kick 40, 45 yards, they were going with the wind into the shielded, they don't have trouble with kicking usually, right? So they that would have helped. But that's an interesting theory, just to not put themselves in that spot. And you're right, Corey Mace didn't explain it that way. His thought process, as we both basically quoted him saying in his postgame scrum, was, we'd still have to do it again. We'd still have to score a touchdown somewhere. Most people would say, well, from 5 yards out, 3 plays, do it there. But his thought was that the Riders, would have to come down and score that touchdown later on anyway. So we'll get it that next time, and not having faith in his kicker. Interesting thought. You're right. Nobody will ever admit it, but maybe that is thinking in the back of Whelan in his strategy. Has it worked out? The players all thought, we know, as Trevor Harris said, we trust Corey Mace. He knows what he's doing. And his explanation was that he had faith in his offense and his defense, basically. And to their credit, they gave Nathan Rourke the football back twice because they had to punt one time. And both times it was basically 2 and out, right? So the defense was so pumped up about that, and maybe he knew that would happen. They stopped the Lions twice, couldn't even get them a first down. And then Trevor Harrison, his legendary 74-yard touchdown drive was pretty impressive. But I hadn't thought about that one. You and I hadn't spoken about it till this podcast, and I think that might. I agree that could have played a part in the strategy.
It's my conspiracy theory, but I just think you want to put the ball in the hands of the player who is your best player and who you feel confident with.
Yeah.
And that to me isn't Brett. That is Trevor Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Although you need Trevor Harris to score a touchdown, which is harder than setting up field goal position. I think maybe that came down to the decision. Maybe one day he'll reveal that to me. But
in his book, let's tell him we'll write a book when his career's done.
Sure.
They were booing him. The fans,
and also the decision to punt.
The
decision to punt too, as you talked about later.
Yes.
That was another decision where that could be the game.
What did you think about that one? I agreed with the punting in that situation, right? As you said, if they didn't get it, they were 3rd and 10, right? Yeah. And they were within field goal range. If they didn't get that first down there,
game over.
Then Sean White, although Sean White hit an upright earlier on, one of the greatest kickers in CFL history, right? And ended up making a difference because they lost by 3 points. But in that stage, you're right. I had no problem. What, 1:48 left?
I agreed with
the football. Yeah, and I think, and then the defense was outstanding again, right? As they were for most of it. So I agree with that one, but I didn't agree with the field goal over the touchdown attempt, and neither did most of the fans.
Yeah, geez, and then on the after that punt, when the Riders stopped Nathan Rourke on 2nd and 3.
Yes,
he goes for a little quarterback draw. That was like the play of the game defensively for this team, because that essentially gave Saskatchewan the ball back. Mm-hmm. Maybe had Nathan Rourke got 2 yards on that 2nd and 3, they go for it, right?
Yeah.
They do a quarterback sneak, but they stopped him. It was even maybe a loss of 1, and they were forced to punt it away. That to me was, I think,
huge play.
Biggest plays.
Of course, huge defensive play. Best defensive play. AJ Allen, who there's 3 guys in there. I think Jameer Thurman's in on that.
Thurman and
too,
Revis as well. Yep.
Yeah, and CJ Revis. So playing him at safety seemed to pay off. Yeah, a tremendous defensive play, and it's one that kind of gets lost in the routine because only so many words you can write about it, and you end up concentrating on the drive and on the decision by Corey Mace, and they survived it. So all credit to them, and off to the 112th Grey Cup, right?
Yeah. Had they not survived it, that's all we would have spent this whole podcast talking about that decision, and there would have been outrage, and it would not have been a pretty scene.
No,
in my opinion.
No, it sure wouldn't have. And you know what? You and I have on the podcast throughout this season, we've talked about how much
yes, and
better
you just wrote
Corey
about
Mason,
it.
Yeah, has been as a sideline tactician, right? He wasn't great last season, and he admitted it. It was his first year as a head coach. He's juggling the defensive coordinators and the head coaching decisions, and wasn't quite prepared for it. But one of the very first articles I wrote this year was Corey Mace telling me that he and Kent Majeri, the special teams coordinator, and Mark Mueller, the offensive coordinator, got together regularly to talk strategy. What do we do in this situation? And plan for it. And I think it really paid off, because up until the West Final, I don't think he made a decision that I really would have questioned. There might be some minor ones that you go either way, but nothing that was game resolving the way that one was. So the fact that and I think you and I chuckled about that, the fact that he had done everything kind of right on the sidelines all year, and then all of a sudden he goes for this wild call in the West Final was kind of out of character for him at that stage of the season.
Yeah, but he talked about it after. He said, "I just had faith." And again, I think that goes down to I have faith in Trevor Harris, and I don't really have faith in Brett Lauther kicking a 30-yard, 40, whatever it might be.
Yeah,
I really just think it comes down to that. There's no analytics that go into it. There's no, odds are we're going to score a touchdown from 5 yards, and right, like, And even had they not
get stopped, then they'd at least got BC hemmed into the field. So that's why it was so weird.
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense. The faith that he had in guys, you're right. Faith in Trevor Harris, faith in his defense too to make those stops, which is sometimes a tough one to have. They had given up one first down. That game's basically over.
Yeah. But you do play to win the game, and they needed to find points on 2 drives.
Yes, right? They did. So, yeah. So
there's probably that thinking as well.
And how pumped up are his players knowing that he has that much faith in them, though, too, right?
Yeah, go get a stop.
And that's the way he coaches, right? Like, damn the torpedo sometimes, and I have faith in my guys.
Yeah,
and that he said that. He told us that all in the press conference, the post-gamer, that faith in those guys. That's what it came down to. Holy, okay, tough to argue with that. Yeah. Faith, I wrote that in my column. Faith is so illogical, right? A lot of times it doesn't make sense. That was illogical, didn't make sense, turned out. So what the heck?
You had faith. Yeah, so we've gone 11 minutes of the podcast, so we haven't really even talked about the final drive, which if the Riders beat the Montreal Alouettes in the Grey Cup, that final drive will be like cemented in Trevor Harris's legacy of all-time drives and whatnot.
Unless he does it again.
Unless he one-ups himself. But what are your thoughts on not only how the Riders played that final drive, but even the BC Lions and how I felt like they were a bit soft.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, which was strange. But that's kind of the weakness of the BC Lions all year. They did get better on defense, but they had a TJ Lee and a couple of players, and Dave and Mike Benavides, the defensive coordinator, got his team playing better. But just I don't think they could really trust that defense. Right, there was no real pressure, but they don't have a great defensive line other than Matthew Betts as a defensive end. But the Riders with the 4 American offensive linemen and Logan Ferland in the middle at center was just outstanding, right? They had to juggle their roster a little bit, and maybe that's why Brett Lauther was kicking, because he's Canadian. But to get those 4 American linemen hasn't happened, according to Rob Vanstone, since like 1976 that the Riders have played 4 American offensive linemen. Great decision, right? That's a pregame decision, a personnel decision that put them in a great spot. And I think that's kind of what probably led BC to not being effective and maybe playing a little softer on defense and allowing the Roughriders to drive 74 yards at the end. So, BC was a little weak in that one, but Saskatchewan took advantage of it with that great offensive line performance. Yeah,
they made some plays. Sam Emilus made a couple of nice catches.
Yeah.
That first chunk play, if you want to call it that, to MLS over the middle was huge. And then I still think that catch by Dante Myers was
huge. What a tough.
As big as the catch by Tommy Neal in the end zone.
I agree with you, because that set them up on the 3-yard line, right? And he had to go back. Trevor Harris had missed him, and Myers went back to catch that ball. And that drive basically almost started with a Dell Duncan Busby drop, right?
He drops it
right in his hands, and he's turning to go and drops the football, and they still managed to put one together. So, a couple of amazing catches by Dell Duncan Busby, yes, by Tommy Neal, yes, by Dante Myers. And Tommy Neal had to face the God Center, right? The review, because all scoring plays are reviewed, and it was a long review. Did you think the God Center was going to take over?
I didn't know what was going to happen after about a minute. I was like, well, what are they looking at if it's taking this long? It looked like a catch. Felt like a catch. Like there was nothing to me that said, and they called it a touchdown. Obviously
that was the big one to me, Taylor, that the officials on the field called it a catch, and there was nothing that disputed that. That was what I was so mad about the other time when, I think the God Center really ruined it for the Riders in that last regular season game.
Right.
2 calls that went against the Riders because of the review. But the one that was Keon Hatcher catching the game-winning touchdown in the end zone, the official was right on spot, waved it incomplete, and then you looked at it over and over and over again. And it looked like the ball might have been trapped against the ground. So you can't conclusively say that was clear and obvious possession. And they still gave it to BC. So I was wondering what the heck they were thinking when they were looking at Tommy Neal's catch.
Yeah, and there would have been a riot, I think, if had they ruled that incomplete and had they not scored the touchdown, say on the next play. I don't even want to know what would have happened then. But
oh my goodness, wouldn't that have been ugly?
Yeah.
The BC Lions owner.
I was going to say there's a bit of a conspiracy theory about it not being a catch. On his social media account, Omar Doman and the general manager of the team both say, looking at funny, bad reproductions of the play, seem to think that Neal's elbow is actually the football and it hits the turf. And they're saying that's not a catch, and they feel really ripped off by it. I don't see it the same way they do. You and I looked at all the pictures. It's such a bad photo, and the football is up here, and the elbow is actually a thing that they're thinking is the football.
Yeah, just because of the dark color of it, because of the way it reproduced. And to me, it's a catch over and over and over again. BC, that's I don't know. That's just that's complaining about the replay center and how bad it is sometimes, that you can't trust it. And maybe that's the point of the whole thing. But I didn't see how it could not be considered a catch when you look it over. Totally different from the other one, especially because the official on the field called it a catch, saw it as a catch originally. So the replay is only supposed to overrule it if there's clear and obvious evidence to the contrary, and there was none that showed that it wasn't a catch. So a tough loss, but
But even to post that photo, what are you going to do about it now? They're not going to bring the teams back and replay it.
Really. Yeah.
It was done. The process was followed. Right call, wrong call, whatever you think. The process was followed. Anyway, let's set up the Grey Cup now. We've got Montreal and Saskatchewan. We've got Davis Alexander, if healthy, hurt his hamstring, but says he's good to go, versus Trevor Harris. The young up-and-comer versus the veteran. This is quite an enticing quarterback matchup. The defense, that matchup in itself is great. You want to talk about the head coaches matchup? Like, everything to me there's a lot of good storylines heading in.
Yeah, it is. And Montreal, who used to win regularly, beat the Roughriders the last time they met and won. Jason Moss, the head coach of Montreal, and Corey Mace, finalists for Coach of the Year awards, right? So, and Moss used to coach in Saskatchewan as an offensive coordinator. Really good story angles. You're right. The big one, though, right, is the 39-year-old quarterback that the Roughriders have, and Trevor Harris, who's playing pretty well, getting protected, even running a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. So just when he really has to, which is important. It's the playoffs now. You have to. He wouldn't be running as much if it was regular season, but playoffs get a little bit more extreme, so he's running a bit. And Davis Alexander, the 13-0 as a starting quarterback for the Montreal Alouettes. That team just resonates around him. If he's on the field, they're a great football team. If he's not on the field, they just don't seem as invigorated, right? McLeod Bethel Thompson, the old veteran pro, just doesn't have that type of enthusiasm for that team, it seems like, and they're not the same squad. If McLeod Bethel Thompson has to play quarterback for the Alouettes because Davis Alexander re-injured his hamstrings too badly to play, then I can't even see Montreal coming close to the Roughriders. But with Davis Alexander playing, I can see this being a very good, exciting football game.
Bethel Thompson beat the Roughriders earlier this year.
Yeah, I know. But
lost to them too. Lost
Montreal badly too, right? So,
the Riders haven't faced Davis Alexander this year.
I know. Yeah,
so
and that's why
you can't really look at the season series or anything. It's
yeah. But you've seen that team with Bethel Thompson.
I agree.
Yeah, that was a surprise that they beat Saskatchewan in that one.
Yeah, that was a weird game.
There were a couple of times that Saskatchewan was flat. The Roughriders were flat this year. It seemed like every Calgary game, and that one against Montreal for sure. But remember when they really had to beat Montreal early in the season, they were back-to-back against Hamilton and Montreal. And we thought, boy, this is really going to prove if the Roughriders are good. And they did. They smoked the Alouettes. And you're right, McLeod Bethel Thompson's the guy. But I can't imagine him doing that again. I can't imagine him being much of a threat. But, boy, that running quarterback, they just – you talk about beating the young guns with Trevor Harris just beating Nathan Rourke, maybe the best quarterback we're going to see in this league for a long time. And now going up against Davis Alexander, one of the most promising quarterbacks we've seen in a long time. It's quite a story. And it might be Trevor. Is it Trevor Harris's swan song if he wins this one?
I wonder if he'll tell us.
Yeah, I wonder. I will
also want to ask about, think about to last year, Davis Alexander coming off the bench and beating the Roughriders. That, like, I know he's been in the league a few years, but that was the first time that I sort of had heard the name Davis Alexander, and all of a sudden he replaces Caleb Evans and leads the Alouettes to a win. And I wrote about it. I wonder if the Riders maybe just were a little bit easier on Caleb Evans in that game. Would Davis Alexander be in this position? Who knows, right? Had Caleb Evans played a little bit better, would he still be would Cody Fajardo still be there? There's a whole bunch of different dominoes, but
all the dominoes are falling.
But Davis Alexander took over that game, led the Alouettes to a win, and has not lost a game since. Missed some time due to injury, so this 13-0 record is spanned over quite a large amount of time, but he's a gamer.
Yeah, he is. He plays hard, and that's why he's going to be hurt all the time, right? He does whatever he needs to do, and even in the game against Hamilton, upsetting the Tiger Cats in Hamilton in the East Final, he gets hurt because he just has to do everything, and the whole team responds to him that way. So I think he's going to try to play, but is he going to be effective, and can he run? And I think the Roughriders are probably aware of that he might not be able to run, so they have to play him more like a drop-back quarterback. But we'll see. He seems to pull rabbits out of hats.
Yeah,
he's a talented, young, enthusiastic player, and I think that's a fun matchup to watch. I know the quarterbacks are on the field at different times, but it still comes down to quarterback versus quarterback in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a good game, so let's wrap up the podcast with that. Enjoy the game this week. We'll maybe debrief it all next week on the Rider Rumblings podcast to wrap up the season, Darrell.
Okay, we may as well do a post-Grey Cup podcast for it, since we got a pre-game Cup podcast for the first time with the Roughriders. So, pretty exciting and tough to say, but I can write it.
All right. We'll see how the game goes, but thanks as always for joining. That does it for episode 186.
All right. See you, Taylor.